And we're live, Bill.
Hello, Sean.
Welcome
Don't
to the
sound so
podcast.
excited.
For any of you out there in listener land, Bill is hyped today. He was just doing burpees before we started just to get himself amped up, as you can tell. All right. We have a lot to cover today. I'm joined today, as always, by the good Bill Coleman.
Good morning, Sean. Or good afternoon, Sean.
Good day.
Good day.
Good day to you, sir. I'm also joined by her second podcast back,
Hello, Katie Rosa.
Katie Rosa. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys.
And I thought what could be interesting to talk about today is there's a topic that's been top of mind for me, but also seems to be coming up more and more, and I'm curious on your takes. And just like everything else here, we're interested in the audience's feedback as well, so leave your comments and let us know your takes on these things. So the key topic today is the value of college degrees, which we were just interviewing a bunch of people here this morning, and that came up as a topic. So let's just get the biases out of the way first. Every single one of us sitting in this room right now has a college degree.
Correct. And you
Correct.
both have masters. I do not.
Incorrect.
You don't?
I do not.
What?
Woo!
I just made an assumption.
I got something over Bill. An artificial degree that
you're
means
just
nothing.
like, you're so smart. I don't know. I just assumed you did.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome, you know.
So we have a bias, but one of the things that I'm always intrigued about is one of the things that came up in an interview earlier today, but this is my belief anyway, is I was asking people why they chose the school they chose. And one of the pieces of feedback came in a couple different ways. They got scholarships there, or it was a lower cost school, or all valid and really good reasons, especially with the way that economics have gone with college and universities lately. I mean, I don't know that it's sustainable.
We should note that all the people you were speaking with today were college students.
Correct.
For our summer internship program.
I don't go around asking everybody that. But one of my beliefs is that I think in the future, because of the structural inefficiencies of college, you're going to see the requirement for that drop, because I think you could easily have, there's a couple different ways this is being attacked, massive online open courses, or MOOCs. And secondly, though, you can almost develop an apprenticeship, just like you have in skilled labor, where maybe somebody comes straight from high school and wants to learn business or marketing or comp, and they are educated specifically in that at the company's expense, I guess, for a couple of years, and then they it's up to them to provide that value back. I think what you're looking at is, and the reason this is coming up is, there was a LinkedIn post recently that about job descriptions that require college experience or require you to have a degree. And so I wanted to talk about that a little bit, because I don't think you should. I think it's more about your experience, but what that goes hand in hand with is you should be able to have a way to get that experience that isn't dependent on a college degree.
I mean, I feel like I would value real life experience over straight up. If you're a smart person and you are passionate about like whatever field you're looking like me, like if I were hiring a writer or someone on the content side of things, interest and passion about writing and interest and just about the business and general, I guess, intelligence is more valuable to me than like, okay, did you study this for 4 years in school? When it comes to things like writing, like that is very much what you're learning and what you're doing in the classroom when it comes to content and writing isn't going to trump what you do outside on your own. Like to get good at writing, you need to practice it a lot on your own, Well, 2 podcasts ago, John Sutliff from our team was on here saying he looks for 3 traits when he's hiring somebody: humble, hungry, and smart. Yeah.
Right. So do you need a degree for that?
No.
Does having a degree make you a better writer?
No, I don't think so.
Although, wouldn't you think that writing in school, where you have somebody to review your writing and help you fine-tune it versus just writing?
You would get that. I feel like you would get that on the job too, though. Like we're constantly reviewing each other's stuff, and you're getting that. Or if you work with a good, like my first job out of school, I probably learned in my first 3 months there. I had an extremely tough editor. More about that type of writing than I did in school, especially because unless you're in like in my case, like creative writing classes, you're not. You're learning like academic style writing, and I'm getting off on a tangent and a whole other topic here, but that's not something I like. If someone's a great like research writer, I don't necessarily value that in a marketing role.
What's your take, Bill?
I think that there's a lot of I think there's a lot of value to college and college education, and I think if you talk to people post-college about their work experience, they do get a lot of value out of what they did in school. But I have noticed, and this goes way back, way all the way back to my era, is that a lot of what professional people cite as things that they learned and valued from college is not from the classroom.
Yes.
Correct.
And
Yes.
oddly enough, and I think that this may be a little misleading, when there are things from the classroom, it's usually things that were outside your major. And that your major is the thing that you are passionate about, you learn about, and you can do. And you could probably, if you're, hungry, to use John Sullivan's word, you can do that on your own. Or if you're Katie, you can write a lot on your own. But what you learn in other classes that can be applicable or helpful is the things you remember, because the other stuff is just almost internal or intrinsic to you. But then there's also the whole issue, which college is not necessarily the thing for this, or the requirement for this, is the whole issue of maturity.
That's what I was
going to
say too. Yeah, like the leadership skills. I mean, at least I look back on I was involved in a lot of like extracurriculars, and I feel like I got a ton of like leadership and like that type of experience or interest through that. But and like the social skills you learn in college, and just being like self-driven. Your mom's not getting you out of bed to go make you go to class, and those types of things. I think there's a lot of value in that, and just like you said, maturity. Like you grow up in college a little bit more, but.
And learn how to deal with people and with drama and problems, and get people to do things
time
they don't
management.
want to do.
But we say that because that's our frame of reference today, and that's where you spend formative years of your adolescence, right? But what I wonder is, and I 100% agree, there's a ton of value in all of that, and I agree with you, Bill, that it's, some of my favorite classes or memories from college were things that were absolutely unrelated to my day-to-day, if you will. But I think
Same.
What's really interesting is, as the cost for college continues to skyrocket, way more so than the cost of everything else, as the cost of everything else rises, are we coming to a society where only people who are bestowed with the ability to afford this or go into a ton of debt, are they the only ones we're going to have in our labor pool as far as we look at the job descriptions right now? Are we shutting out a bunch of potential people that are really talented but might not have had the same lot in life?
I think that is a risk. And that, I think that a lot of schools are seeing the student pool, the population, be wealthier, like more established and
More homogeneous.
And also think of like from that perspective, like those kids are also not necessarily the smartest, the brightest, the best always. I mean, yes, they might be, but they are, to Sean's point, like they've got that, they've kind of got that upper hand. They might have somebody who is college educated guiding them on like, here's where you should look at, like here's how you approach the general admissions process.
Right.
Like, you're probably not a first generation college student. You can afford the debt, or your parents are paying for it. Like,
you have coaches, you have essay writers.
Yeah.
You have
just the schools that you can apply to in and of itself at that lot in life are completely different than someone who might be a first generation college student, or like the child of an immigrant who's also a first generation college student, whatever. I
mean, you have the means to be on a traveling sports team or some other, high time, high dollar extracurricular that makes you stand out.
Yeah.
But I've also heard, and this is fairly recent, there's been a big pushback against that at least a lot of colleges, where they're very aware of, not catering admissions to the people that have perfectly well manufactured applications.
But I'd argue that
dropping
those
the SAT scores as a
dropping the SAT
right?
scores, you see like a conscious attempt to bring in first generation college.
But I'd still argue that some of those people, like maybe it's not your parents, but someone along, and I don't know, I haven't applied to college in a million years, but like I imagine that somebody is there coaching them, right? Maybe it's a teacher who sees a lot of potential. I still feel like in some way they must have some sort of like upper hand. Like the admissions process in and of itself isn't the most straightforward, especially if you're 17 years old.
Well, so there's probably two key things that we're talking about here. Then, right? One is access to mentorship.
Yes.
In whatever form that comes in, whether that's a teacher, a parent, a relative, whatever. Right? But again, that's selective bias unless there's an overt effort to go after people that don't have that mentorship, right? And then secondly, I think we're shunning a lot of the workforce because of this selection bias. Like, so right now we're talking about this, right? Like, we interviewed a bunch of potential interns today. Every single one of them was in a college program.
Correct.
Right? Wouldn't be interesting, potentially, if we're saying that maybe this is overvalued, if we started to look at people that weren't, right? We're either seniors in high school or we're going to, just graduated, or we're trying to figure out where to go in life, and maybe we're willing to give them a shot.
You know what else would have been interesting? You said that you spoke to you asked every intern candidate why they chose their school. I think you said that.
Not everyone, but it was a question.
A good amount of them. Like, why did you choose to go to school in the first place? I know so many people, and maybe it's different with like this current generation, but I know so many people in my generation who went to school because that's what you do, and then don't use their degrees at all, not even remotely use them.
Yeah, and to be 100% clear on this, the reason I'm bringing this up as a topic, there's a ton of value in school, no doubt. There's a ton of value in school, but what I worry about is just I have two young kids. I look at the way those costs are rising, and I'm wondering at what point is there an inflection point where it's no longer worth.
I was going to ask you if you're going to encourage them to go.
Either the investment or the debt that you have to take on, right? And that's why you see so much pressure, I think, now in a lot of communities. To your point, Bill, you have to do well on your SATs. You have to do these traveling sports teams. You have to be, because that's my chance of scholarship, right? And that's unneeded pressure, too, when there's enough growing up as it is.
Right, and you're starting to see more companies saying college degrees are not required.
Right.
But I think what you were getting at a second ago is like all of us. It's a broad brush comment. Many of us in the professional world, many HR people, it's almost like it's pre-printed on the job description.
Yeah.
Bachelor degree required or master's degree
MBA
required.
preferred.
But is it required? Is it necessary to do the job, or is that just a requirement that you are putting on because
that's what you do?
Everyone has done that traditionally, and I think you get some big players out there, Google, Facebook, Ernst & Young, GE, IBM, saying that college degrees are not always required. Clearly they are going to be required for some jobs, but not for others. And I'm picking like those companies because they are posting and hiring for jobs that many other companies say a college degree is required for, and they're saying it's not required.
They can spark that sea change.
Right. And they're, in fairness to everyone else listening, those organizations are big enough and confident and comfortable enough that they can afford to do the apprenticeship.
Because if you're hiring someone straight out of high school, you're even just from a maturity standpoint, you're going to be doing a whole lot more hand-holding than you might with even though you're going to be doing a lot of hand-holding with someone straight out of college, it's going to be even more so. You're going to have to invest a lot of time in that individual, so they better be worth it, right?
You need a legit apprenticeship structure, right?
Yeah.
And you need to realize that they're going through their formative years just like you may in college while they're at your company. So they're going to screw up, right? But, how do you adjust for that and make sure that it's a learning environment? And you need to
set them up with mentors.
Yeah, you need to be a thoughtful organization, right? That can help them advance their career and help them find their interests.
If you do it successfully, that's such a way to stand out.
I think so. If you could make that work over the long term.
Yeah.
But if you think about like some of the, big name companies, highly respected ones, big consulting firms, big financial services firms, big professional services firms, like the first thing they do when they hire a new class, mostly they are college graduates, but when they hire them, they go into training,
right.
And you come in and you learn. You learn to do this the Morgan Stanley way. Or
GE has the GE MBA that they call it, right?
And but GE goes even further. They actually do have they have like a long-term training
rotational program for a
Right.
couple of years, I think. Right.
Right, exactly. But the other ones, they train you how to do things their way, and they don't.
But
really,
think of the benefit to the company if you're doing that. If we hired people straight out of high school, we're literally molding them to exactly
Right.
the BDR we want, or what. I'm just picking that roll out of a hat, but
right. But it's also you have to pay for that.
Yeah.
It's you pay for it both in the sort of the difficulty of training them and getting them up to speed, but also the literal cost of having a program where you have people
Yeah.
that are not contributing for longer because you're training them how to do things.
But I
your
wonder
way.
what the long-term ROI on that is. Like, are those people, because you've molded them and you've given them, kind of a leg up, are they more likely to be loyal to the company for longer than they otherwise might be?
Or even if you can require them to be. I've heard of that too. We're going to invest in you for training for a couple of years, but you got to stay here for 4 years afterwards.
Yeah,
or something
I've heard
like
of that. I've heard of that.
Might not be ideal,
Right.
but it is one of the ways to overcome this structural inefficiency that we're talking about.
It's an interesting thought.
It's a challenge for, changing the mindset and, getting started in a program like that is difficult. But I think what you'll see is, you're already seeing like some colleges are having a hard time because they're, they can't justify. One of you two said this. They can't justify charging $50,000-$60,000 a year and then sending people out into the workforce where they have a degree that's not helping them earn
Yeah.
enough money to make that worthwhile.
They're making 30 and
Right.
they have
Yeah,
a
you
massive
never-
amount of debt.
Right. You never pay that back.
Well, there's been a
But-
ton of stories too recently. That we're going on a tangent here, but I remember reading one last weekend where the person in the story was delaying life decisions. So specifically here it was that his wife was not ready for a child because of the amount of student debt they had, and they were in their late 30s. And he was feeling the need to have a child, and big life decisions like that, like home ownership.
Oh, I feel like
kids.
that's all you hear about. My generation is like, oh, you're still living at, maybe, I don't know if people are still living at home with their parents, but some are, like you're still living at home with your parents, or you're living there for an extended amount of time. And it's like, well, yeah, when you have $200,000 in student debt, like how can you afford a $3,000 apartment in Boston? You just can't.
Yeah. So to your point, Bill, at what point is that not worth it?
And if you have a degree in poetry because someone told you had to go to college, you know what I mean? Like, and you're working as a sales rep.
What was the value of the degree?
Exactly. Yeah.
But I think the other side of this is you're going to start seeing some, I think, forward-thinking line managers sitting there saying, I don't really care if the person has a degree. This guy is smart, or this woman is, has a great personality for sales, or is, a lot of, is a great writer.
Is super creative and would be a great designer. Yeah.
I've been reading her blog for years. I don't care whether or not she
Yeah.
has a degree, and so you sort of get the renegade maverick approach where somebody will, like an individual manager, will make a pitch to hire an individual person who doesn't have a degree, and then people will go, "Wow, that worked."
We don't
Hopefully.
when you put together job descriptions, Sean. You don't put, and I don't either. I don't put I didn't put a college degree most recently on it. I mean, that said, I don't think a single person without a college degree applied, but
Yeah, I typically don't because it's more about the relevant experience.
Right,
But
yeah.
again, what we're talking about here is how do you get that relevant experience then?
if you're, I mean, yeah.
Right, this is the challenge. You
Because
really
even
have
if
to
you're
have
in a
programs
blue collar
place.
field, you're still that's where you're getting those apprenticeships or
Correct.
something similar.
Correct.
And how do you avoid? I guess that raises another question, which is a challenge for HR and anyone else in management, is how do you make it culturally acceptable in an environment where most of your employees have college degrees to not have a bias or not treat somebody without a college degree differently.
Yeah.
They shouldn't. You shouldn't, but
That's
People
the same
will,
to me as
yeah.
any other bias, though. There's always the
Correct.
bias in hiring, which is, I'm cool. I like people like me. That person's like me. They must be cool too. I'm going to hire them. This is how this happens, right? And it's the same thing there. It's looking outside your world and realizing there's other possibilities.
is that why your team is so cool?
That's
Well,
why
we
my
are the
team's
coolest.
awesome, because they're all exactly like me. All right. Well, hopefully this was a little educational today. We just thought these were interesting topics that deserved a little bit more discussion. We want to know your take on them. We always post this on LinkedIn. Let us know your comments there. Tweet at us. Leave some comments on our podcast on Apple iTunes subscription, on Google Play. Let us know what you think.
We also have 6 boxes of swag for Comp and Coffee podcast listeners. We are giving them out to anybody who comments on iTunes. So leave us a comment, tell us your thoughts. Make it yourself somehow identifiable, whether it's your first and last name or something, your email, so that we can reach out to you and mail you your swag. The first 6 people to respond will get some.
Or email and let us know you did it. It's coffee@payfactors.com.
Right.
All right, everybody. Thanks for your time today. We'll catch you next week.
Thanks.